Hey everyone, I am Brandon Oliveris from Co-Creation Coaching, and I'm here with another reader's question for this week. Once again, as always, if you would like to ask your own question for readers' questions, which will be covered in a video like this, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ask and submit your question there. I always appreciate questions that our readers ask, especially because it really helps me to know what everyone wants to know more about and what all of you are struggling with so that I can cover more of those topics. So please do ask your questions. There's no such thing as a bad or silly question, so please go ahead and ask. Now, today we have a question from a reader, actually from Russia, and she sent in a quite extensive question, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, and there are a lot of personal details, so I won't show the whole thing either. But in essence, what it comes down to is that 10 years ago, she was doing extremely well up to that point, but all of a sudden lost her job, her career, everything started falling apart. From what she said, sounds like she lost her home, and she's been trying to get all of that back ever since, and isn't sure why she's not able to. So here's basically her question. Since I was quite rich in the past, and money used to come easily to me, the subconscious structures for it should be in place, shouldn't it? Why then I cannot create money now? I am working a lot with my negative emotions, subconscious parts, other blocks. I visualize, dissolve resistance, work with soul and spirit, but something is still missing. Could you please give me an idea what it can be? So this is a really great question as always, because I have talked about subconscious structures a lot, and so it seems like from what I've said, if you have those structures in place, then you should be set. And most of the time that's true. If you have structures in place, then they should continue. But sometimes you can have a situation, and it sounds like this is a case like that, where your subconscious structures, for some reason, something came up and changed everything. So you might have great subconscious structures around money, around the possibility of having money, but some situation in your life might have come up where it overshadowed that. It basically triggered other resistance that might have been dormant up to this point. For example, someone can find it really easy to make money at a good job, but once they quit that job and maybe try to start their own business, they no longer are able to make money so easily. Because they do have a good money vibration in general, but the pathways to that money coming haven't changed, and the pathway of money coming through the business is not as clear and open as money coming through a career, a job. Now, unfortunately, this is often a blind spot, okay? Because there's usually some big thing that's keeping you stuck. And it's even likely that other people who know you really well could probably tell you what that thing is. But because you're working with it day after day, because it's part of you, it's really hard for you to see yourself. And in these sorts of circumstances, I really do recommend working with some kind of coach. And of course, I offer coaching, and I'll give a link to my coaching offerings in the description for this video and in the transcript. But I do recommend, for anyone who has had a major change in life and suddenly things aren't going the way that they expect them to go, that they always have gone, just like we have in this question here, I do recommend coaching, because getting someone else, especially someone else objective who isn't in your day-to-day life, that person can often see what you would never see in a million years. And even most coaches have coaches because it's easier to grow that way. So when you feel stuck like this and you just aren't sure where it's coming from, obviously I will give some suggestions in a minute, but I just really do recommend thinking about working with someone who can really point that out for you. But there are some ways that you can try to search for what exactly it is keeping you stuck. I would start with, in your question, you say that all of a sudden things start spiraling down out of control. So I would look to that time in your life. What exactly happened? What changed? What was triggered? Look to the fears you experienced. Look to any struggles you had at the time. What was out of the ordinary? What happened that caused you to start spiraling out of control? And when you're doing this, try not to look at just external circumstances. It's really easy for us to say, well, if this person hadn't done that, or if this event hadn't happened, I would still have everything I had. But those are just reflections of who we are. Something changed on the inside that caused all this to happen. So what was your major fear at that time? What were you struggling with at that time? What kind of things were you dealing with? And that will tell you, that will show you what might have triggered all of this. Because what you can do is you can look at the external circumstances, but only as the effect of whatever caused all of this. Look at the effect, look at the external circumstances, and ask yourself, what's the common denominator? What do all of these have in common? What did these cause me to feel? What did these cause me to fear? And that will often take you and point the way to what might have triggered all of this. Another thing you can do is right now. What's keeping you stuck? Okay, that was 10 years ago, but you're still stuck. In your question, in your length of your question, you said that, you've tried all sorts of different practices. You tried starting a coaching business of your own, but are unable to get clients. What is keeping you stuck now? Okay, and try to look underneath, all the surface level fears about not having enough money and things like that. But what is really keeping you stuck? What is your deep, dark fear that you really don't want to look at? And that's usually where the answer is. If you can look under the surface and find what it is you're trying not to look at, find what it is that you're trying to escape from, that will probably hold the answer for you. And of course, I can't know what that is just from your question. It's impossible without working with you. But those things should point the way. Now, after you've discovered that, you're going to have a whole ton of resistance. And so you need to work with that resistance to get back on track, to get back to where you want to be. But what I suspect you might be doing, and this happens when you have been stuck for quite a while, it's been 10 years for you, and that is a very long time. What I suspect might be happening is that you're so focused on being stuck. Why am I stuck? Why am I stuck? Why am I stuck? That you're not focused on where you want to be. Being stuck has become your life. Being stuck has become your identity. But to get back on track, you need to focus on what it is you actually want, which is creating the life that you want, which is having money, having a job that you enjoy, or having a successful business. So don't focus on what's wrong. Focus on what you want to have. And I say this over and over again, and I know it's very simplistic, but it is the most important thing. Focus not on what you don't want, on what is wrong right now with your life, but focus on what you want to have in the future. And have that within yourself now. Have that feeling right now. And let the resistance come up. Because what we do is we get in this resistance release cycle where we look for resistance, we release the resistance, and then we look for more resistance and then release more resistance, and so on and so forth. And that's not what you want to do. Let your focus on the wanted bring up the resistance. And when it comes up, you release it. Don't go looking for it. Because I guarantee you that the more you go looking for it, the more you'll find. There will always be more and more and more and more and more. But let your focus, your narrowed focus, your pointed focus, lead the way to your goal. Carve a pathway through your subconscious, through your reality, to the goal that you want. And as you focus on that, as you pointedly focus on the goal, then the resistance that you need to release will come up, and you release it, and you go back to focusing on what you want. That is how you get to where you want to go. You lead with the focus on what you want to have, and then you deal with the consequences. You don't go digging for resistance. Okay, I've tried that before, and it just never, ever, ever worked. I'd get stuck for weeks just looking for resistance more and more and more, and it just never worked. So don't do that. Go lead with your focus and focus on what it is you really want. Do that daily. Okay? Do that daily, and you will get there. I also recommend looking at my podcast that was just published on Saturday about why you need to invest yourself in your goals, because it'll show you more about why you really need to focus daily on what it is that you want. So I'll give a link to that in the description in the transcript as well. So I hope that answers your question for you. Again, if anyone else listening has a question you'd like to be answered in one of these videos, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ask, and I would be happy to answer your question. If you would like to read the transcript for this video, you can head over to cocreationcoaching.org. I will also give a link in the description to where the transcript is. And you can also leave a comment there, which I always love hearing your comments. So thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like more videos like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel or head over to cocreationcoaching.org and sign up to my list to receive all future updates. And you can also get my free checklist, 10 reasons you aren't getting results with the law of attraction. Thanks everyone. I hope you have a great day. And as always, anything is possible.